Whoops, I forgot to. Forgot to turn on. Oh wow, BlueStacks is really large. I never watched a full loading screen for April Fools. It's so cute this year. Oh, puppies. Hi, Jester. Oh, you're chilling in the Yuri Cafe again. Hi. What are you working on? I'm assuming you're trying to make progress on something if you're in Yuri Cafe. On Go. How is my audio? All good, by the way. Just checking. Working on. Ooh, W plays. I never tried doing W plays pixel art. How, like, do you just place down pixels as often as you want to, or is there like some limitations? I should have a just chatting screen so I can like just stall a little bit before I start my the meat of my streams. Oh yeah, I think I have a lurk. I think I have a lurk command in my chat right now. I don't remember. There's a limit you slowly, but I see. I see. So you chip at it away at it slowly. It's not like an art program. Yeah, I never had the patience for those kinds of things. What are you planning to draw? Ow! Well, I want to see how badly delayed my stream is right now. Oh, no, it's not very that. No, okay, great. Awesome, great, wow. Thankfully, at the we replaced the guide extension, so calling a pixel guy. I see. Oh, like puts a pixel grid on the map. Yeah, it sounds helpful. Okay, I'm getting sick of the freaking menu screen starting song. Get in. Play my hashtag relaxing Path in our music playlist, please. No.
Perfect timing.
Oh my god, it's this gay ass again. Go away. Go away. I say this, but I spent money twice on 2 of her skins. I hate her. I hate her so much. I hate her. We're free from the ones. No, why am I going here? No, not interrogations. God, I'm so on autopilot. This time it took me a whole fucking month to do another stream, don't you? Didn't it? Don't you? Yeah, I can't speak. Not special core crisis. There it is. There we are. Goodness gracious. I'll stall a little bit more before I start. Wait, I was gonna say something, but I forgot what it was. Fuck. What was I gonna say? Fuck. I forgot. I'm gonna put up the I forgot image. I forgot. That one friend who forgets. That one friend who keeps forgetting. Where is it? That's me. I feel like this every stream, every live stream, this is me. Me in real life. Okay, get off my overlay. Wait, it would be fun if I had it on the corner. Lol. Nah, take it out. You're distracting. Yeah, I was gonna say something. Ah! French people music. I like this song. Okay. Wait, last time, where did we end off last time? I forgot. I remember we... Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, right. Last time, to recap, I think we crashed, Chief got held hostage. Then we crashed into some labs where they were doing illegal mania experiments. And Hella, like, divulges some of her tragic backstory with us about being a victim of human experimentation. And then she also shares that she knows that one woman with a huge sword that was trying to kill us earlier. Yeah, that's where we left off. I remember now. All right. Sorry, my brain blanked out because I like the song.
How far down have we gone?
And we're going down to get the inheritance now.
See the bottom yet? The cave is deeper than I thought.
In the bottomless darkness beneath, the invisible evil presence is still throbbing and spitting murmurs of malice. There could be enemies down there, corruptors or monsters.
I get it. Look, I've got goosebumps all over. I'm not blind or deaf. I know nothing good is going on down there. Since this place has something to do with mania crystals.
Parma.
It'll surprise no one if there are some demons or monsters lurking down there. Brace yourself. There's gonna be an ugly battle the second we land.
Looks like we don't have to wait. They're already here.
Ooh, battle sequence. Battle sequence is skippable. Clank. Ooh, shit. Without any warning, the elevator slams into some obstacle. Following a loud bang, the elevator crashes through something hard. A random array of crystals, perhaps, which are falling into pieces upon impact. You can't see the bottom. The only sensation you're experiencing is the jerky descent of the elevator, which eventually gets stuck at an angle somewhere in the middle.
Is it broken?
Fuck!
Not yet, but careful. We're trapped in the center of the contamination.
Oh boy. A faint light illuminates the deep shaft, whose walls are covered with huge contaminated spikes. It's these spikes that have brought the elevator to a halt. Oh, who's that?
Sound? There's something crawling inside the spikes.
Oh, it's a corruptor. Lol.
Corruptors?
It can't be. We took care of them long ago. This is something else.
Skippable battle sequence.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
Okay. Some of these are a little awkward. What did she say? She did not say piss.
Flip off!
Flip. Bro said flip off. She swings a water pipe and sends flying an approaching corruptor.
Move! This damn elevator has to be stuck in this awkward position. There's no way of getting out. If we don't do something, we'll be eaten alive sooner or later.
The elevator jerks and starts dropping. It travels a distance between coming to a shaky stop.
There's something above, on the cable.
The top of the elevator is already gone. Hanging on the far end of the cable are several contorted shaders. Shades. Sawing away at the cable with their mania machetes. I can't read.
They're cutting the cable?
They want to kill you. For a fleeting moment, you see that in those soulless eyes a naked murderous malice, something you've never seen before in the other corruptors. After a flash of light from the steel, the thick and taut cable is severed. The elevator floor dips and the elevator starts falling at a surprising speed. Ooh, I'm gonna fucking crash. We're gonna crash! We're gonna crash! Calm down, take hold of me! The elevator has a braking mechanism. The spikes in the shaft help break the fall too. We're not free falling yet.
Boo-hoo, listen to yourself. Why are you holding me so tight then? Who is more panicky here?
The enemy below poses no threat for the moment, but watch out for attacks from above.
Oh my god.
Attacks from above?
He's right behind me, isn't he? The last word hardly comes out. Several characters jump down from above, landing on the already rickety elevator with a thump.
This isn't the kind of murderous aura corruptors are supposed to have. Is someone controlling them?
The elevator is falling into pieces, and they're jumping on board to die with us. Hold tight. Look at the height. We're counting on you to come up with something to save us from being smashed to a pulp.
Yay.
We're near the bottom.
Gives
We're
battle
gonna
sequence.
crash.
We're gonna crash!
Chief, hold on to me.
Oof. How'd they survive that? Oh, hi, Val. Are you okay?
Ouch. It hurts. Get up! You're on top of me.
Lol. As you're getting off Hela carefully, a hand from behind helps you to your feet. It belongs to Hekate. She looks alright too.
I thought we would be a bloody pulp by now. Why aren't we? We were traveling so fast.
You got something called plot armor, I think.
The contaminated spikes around here
When
just
we
happened
play
to have
AMQ.
melted and acted as a buffer.
So we're lucky?
We can play it before session tomorrow, maybe. Ported by Hekate and Hela, you step off the shattered elevator gingerly onto the ground. The ruined elevator floor is buried underneath a mound of mushy, stinky flesh. You try your best to avert your eyes. What session? What do you mean, what session? Tomorrow's Sunday. Do we not have a One Piece session?
Hard to say. They've been corrupted by the contamination for a long time. But the contamination here is different from the mania crisis that broke out in the Salva basement. Back then, I was able to sense the contamination resonating strongly with a specific person. With that girl. But in here...
You can sense a strong presence ahead of you, throbbing slowly in the bowels of the crypt. It is radiating strong and murderous malice, nothing human-like. More like a bewitchment, a curse that goes back a long way to the source. Probably the effect of the inheritance.
Can you sense it?
Yes, that nauseating aura overpowers everything here, except her. At the other end of the shackles, a sinner, too powerful to ignore, is moving slowly. Zoya's come down too.
Where is she? Are the other Legion members coming with her?
You shake your head. She's coming down by the central elevator, still a distance away from you. You can't judge how many people have come with her, but you know that she has come for the same reason as you. Let's go. Better get there before her.
Understood. Hela, have you recovered?
Don't treat me like a liability. Let's go. This little injury will heal by itself in no time.
You cast one last glance over your shoulder. Giant spikes of contamination are protruding from the mountain of carcasses. They look like horns in a growing frenzy, tough and dense. They've pierced every inch of the elevator platform. Only the spikes near where you fell have melted, and a narrow passage has formed. The bush of spikes seems to have gotten itself out of someone's way, or has opened itself up to welcome someone in. It's not Hela's power, nor Hekate's. Then whose power was it? As Hela moves ahead, she inspects the massive cracks on the walls and the ground.
We're not alone. Someone's been here not long ago.
The ground is studded with bullet holes, with occasional firearms and human remains. The remains have been assimilated by the contamination, but the fresh smell of blood bespeaks the recentness of the battle.
They were cut open by a large weapon. Not a sword, but an axe. A really heavy, big axe. The gangsters tried to block someone's way, but they failed.
Wields a really big, heavy axe.
was only
99
one person.
holds a big sword, not an
Insanely
use it.
powerful. The girl way they
Oh!
fought does look a lot like Zoya. I bet they must be a
Oh,
demon
okay,
bear.
okay. I know now. I
Demon
remember.
bear with a huge axe at that.
Lol.
Her subordinate, the sinner who escaped from Salva and went out to do recon for her. She's supposed to be trapped underground now, half dead.
Which bit of this is the work of someone half dead? Wait, what the is painted here?
He's touched a massive arrow painted with blood and is straining to look at the jumbled symbols below the arrow.
This is a message. Hella, you can't read?
Yeah, girl.
Damn it! It's because of the hideous handwriting!
No, it's okay. We'll teach you how to read.
Let me take a look. It says, downwards. Be careful. Can't you see?
You're so annoying!
Poor thing. She couldn't go to school. It's not her fault. You step forward. The handwriting does look a bit crooked. It seems it took the writer quite an effort. On the ground, the trail of blood extends from where the message was found. Hecate picks up something from beside the blood.
She has been injured. This is a torn first aid bandage. It comes from Salva.
Indeed, the sinner from the Salva basement. It's the sinner you've been chasing. Suspects are, but this doesn't look like how the woman who woke you up would fight. What on earth is going on? As you're pondering, the carcasses suddenly move.
Go away. Go away.
Their movements are a bit strange. Watch yourself.
Here they are again. This is definitely not the way corruptors are supposed to be. What the heck is controlling them? How outrageously powerful!
Among the shattered hollow carcasses, the maniac crystals embedded in the weapons become deformed and merge with the contamination, glowing an eerie red. Are they controlled by the maniac crystals?
Surely those little rocks can't be that powerful, right? Hold on. Ted's men use the crystals too, but they don't turn into this.
Something's wrong with the crystals in the weapons. Maybe. The maniac crystals in this crypt apparently possess a will with their own. This has been the case with monsters created from Type 99 crystals.
She isn't that kind of person!
That's right. This probably has nothing to do with 99 herself. The true master is. With another wave of throbbing, the aura of the inheritance is getting stronger. As if responding to its call, the monsters before you begin to howl. It's the inheritance! Yay!
There's no time. We must get through the passage and find the inheritance.
Yep.
The exit is right ahead. Hella, take the chief out of here and stay clear of this place.
Okay, good thinking. Hurry up!
He takes your hand and rushes you along out of the passage.
We're out. Hecate, do it!
As soon as Hecate steps out of the passage, she turns around and sets the nightmare on the upper part of the exit. Instantaneously, huge blocks of sandstone come crashing down and block the exit.
It's over.
It's over.
Phew, great. I was worried that they would turn liquid and seep
Hello,
out through
sorry-eyed
the
ass
cracks.
fandom.
Those
Hi,
guys
Trash.
and this place. They were just so damn creepy.
Creepy.
Don't let your guard down. We're out of the passage, but that's no
Switching.
guarantee that we're out of the woods. Chief, can you sense the distance between us and the inheritance?
No need to sense. At the end of the passage is a wide, deep pit. You are standing near its edge, looking down. The pit is near 100 meters in diameter. The lone narrow lane spirals downwards to the bottom, connecting with a lonely island that floats at the very center. In the heart of the island stands a stone altar, lifeless and chilling.
Ew. What's that thing? It's sickening.
Ew!
Looks like something is moving at the bottom.
The inheritance is in that altar.
Doesn't it look suspicious? It's put right there for all to see. It's as if whoever put it there desperately wants people to know it has the inheritance in it.
Going down a big inheritance-shaped hole to find the inheritance-shaped box in the inheritance-shaped
There might be
altar.
some security measures put on it, like a mechanism or a trap.
Or maybe it has to be stored that way. Looking down from this distance, you can't see every detail of the altar, but vaguely you see some strange patterns engraved on it, like something used in a rite. R is nowhere to be seen. Zoya is still on the other side of the crypt. You might have come across some hurdle, as you feel she is making slow progress. Despite that, she keeps getting closer. Let's go, but be careful.
Got it. Those corruptors might be activated again. Chief, stay behind me. Watch out.
Ooh. Let me take a sip of my water. Oh, I know who this is. Yay! We should read her interrogation after her part of the story's over. Out of nowhere, a gigantic axe cuts through the air from behind, coming at you spinning. Nightmare rushes forwards, but is able to deflect his trajectory only slightly. The axe flies overhead and lands heavily on the ground, sinking into the dirt and blocking your way ahead.
Who is this?
Before Hella can turn her head around, a dark shade comes hurtling towards her and deals a blow that sends her flying a few meters. Inertia carries the dark shade along, who then stops in front of the axe. I know who this is too!
Such power. It's a sinner.
Sadly, you won't see much of her until we're in chapter 4 now. So 8 chapters. 7 to 8 chapters later. I don't know.
It's that master of axes.
Hi, Horo. Hi. A dark shade rises slowly, picks up the heavy axe with one hand and hauls it over her shoulder. Turns around to face you, oozing murderous malice.
One person holding out against an army. An apt expression for my situation. Good for me.
Master of axes?
Your soul aura.
How come the master of axes is so tiny? How old is she?
Girl, she's your size.
Face your opponent. I'm Horo, a Legion warrior. I'm here to send you to meet your maker. The inheritance belongs to the Legion. Keep this in mind and die!
Holy shit!
Fierce girl! This is a mini version of Zoya.
I'm sure she's very happy to hear that.
Don't back away. Her power is no match for Zoya's, and she is injured. We can take care of her.
But she's in a different league from the street thugs as far as battle experience is concerned. Plus, the way she fights, going all out, I couldn't even take one blow from her axe.
Bro, one
She's
shot.
a demon bear, all right. One capable of changing into human form. No doubt her shortness is a deception used for tricking her opponents.
Hardly has Hella finished her sentence when she's sent flying by the blunt side of the axe. Hecate immediately jumps in front of you.
You are their leader? Where did you capture these new sinners to force them to fight? You can't defeat Zoya, so you stoop to this. You're despicable, you bastards from the gangs. Who do you think you are plotting against the Legion? Against my boss?
Is she under the influence of mania? She is overexcited, but there's still a chance of bringing her out of the influence. Let me handle her. You wait for an opening to put the shackles on her. And do it fast.
Okay.
Die!
The axe makes the earth shudder and beats back nightmare. Oro's aura overwhelms everyone. Her unwavering determination to fight comes from her absolute loyalty to the Legion and Zoya. People like her will not bow down to you even if they are defeated and shackled. This being the case, you decide to change tack. Stop it, we're on Zoya's side. I'm on your team. I'm on your team. I'm on your team. I'm on your team. It's okay. Guys, it's okay. Guys, it's okay, guys. Before she can get the word out, you take a step forward and plant yourself in front of Hecate. Horus asks halts mid-air, and you look into her eyes and talk in a measured tone. We are free citizens from the Syndicate. We are mercenaries. We have been commissioned by the Legion to come down here to save you. Oh, okay. Okay, actually, how many chapters? Like 13. Yeah, we're already halfway through.
Mercenaries?
We might be able to do 2 chapters today. Yeah, bro. Right. Not for the inheritance, but to save you. You decided to borrow the identity of the mercenary named 99. You just broke out of the NPCC, didn't you?
What if I did?
You didn't return to the Legion, so Zoya sent a lot of people out to look for you. We're only part of the effort.
Why you?
There's a sort of friendship between us and the Salva. Only yesterday, together with Iron and Anne, we defeated Ted. It's then that we learned the news about you. Oro stares at you, seemingly looking into her own memories, but she does not loosen her grip on the axe. Oro, we're not your enemy.
You said it's my boss who sent you here to save me? Where is she then?
She's coming. Just wait. Just wait.
She would
just
either
wait.
believe in me and wait in the fleet for my triumphant return, or lead by example and come to the battlefield herself. She would certainly not entrust her important subordinate to some dodgy character. I've been guarding this place for a long time. The only visitors have been those animals from the gangs. Don't you try to deceive me.
From the other end of the pit comes a continuous booming and vibration that penetrates the thick walls. It's Zoya. She's drawing near. You can't stall any longer. The surrounding contamination is approaching and starts metamorphosing. But Horo pays no heed. Her gaze is fixed on you. This is a look of great determination. She has absolute trust in someone and is willing to burn everything down for that trust. This determination can be taken advantage of. Hashtag gaslight, manipulate, whatever girl boss, I don't know. Yeah, she came down there long ago to save you. She asked us to stay up here, and she went down by the central elevator and went to the depths of the contamination to save you. He pointed Zoya's direction casually, as if on cue. Vibrations issue from there.
What are you talking about? The central elevator is full of traps. My boss, she...
Yeah, Zoya didn't return at the agreed time. The influence of the inheritance was greater than anyone had ever thought. Your advisor, the Earl guy, he was concerned. So he paid us extra to come down here and lend a hand. Zoya ordered in no uncertain terms that no Legion member shall follow her here. But we are just some lowly mercenaries. We questioned a couple of gangsters, found the secret elevator, and came down here. Simple as that. Upon hearing the name Earl, Hora looks bemused for a second. Her furious desire to fight seemed to cool drastically, and her face takes on a complex expression.
It's Earl who sent you? Because he's concerned?
That's right.
That bastard! Who needs his concern?
She leaps up and comes at you, wielding her axe. Just one blow, and the contaminated corruptor behind you is cut in half.
I believe you. Outsiders only know that Zoya is with the Legion, but you guys have met Earl. You are telling the truth.
Well, yes and no.
I'll make up for roughing you
But
up.
it's okay.
Let me deal with this bunch of monsters first, and then you could take it out on me.
No, Pookie, you're bleeding to death. Pookie.
I can't believe she bought all that nonsense of yours and is fighting like she's being possessed. Is she stupid for real? Or just faking it?
Stay alert.
Is she stupid for
We haven't
real?
seen her true colors yet.
She's stupid on purpose. Aura shrugs the remains off her shoulders, throws down her ass. God damn it. That was okay. Okay. Throws out her axe, which sinks into the ground and turns to face you. I did not mean to say that. That just happened.
Sorry.
Throwing down her what? No, she's not throwing down her
That was
ass.
a
She's
beating
not.
from me. I've brought discredit on the Legion. Hit me, throw punches at me, as many as you like, until you have vented
You
your
can't see me right now, but I'm burying my face in my hands. God.
Our little friend here is asking you to hit her. Can you bring yourself to do that? Want me to do the honors?
Yeah, I'm sure you. Yeah, I'm sure you want
Don't
to.
hold back. I am a Legion warrior who can hold
Girl,
her
what
own,
is your
not some
problem?
useless kid who hides behind someone else.
Cleaning up the misunderstanding is enough. We have other business to attend to.
That's very magnanimous of you. I get what my boss sees in you. Now take me to see her. I meant to stay here and get rid of anyone coming here for the inheritance, and wait until my boss arrives. But things have changed. Boss Zoya needs me now. I must be there.
Of course you're not saying yes. You should stay away from Zoya the best you can. Find the inheritance before her, and then leave. That won't work. We should deal with the inheritance first. Perhaps like that mean nothing to Zoya. The real risk is the inheritance. It would speed up the deterioration of the situation.
Are you asking me to turn my back on my boss?
Yeah, I believe in her. You have to need to have faith in her. Protecting you and taking care of the inheritance was what Earl paid us to do. Zoya can handle her end. She'll meet us. She'll meet up with us by the side of the inheritance.
I don't need his meddling. I still can fight. Let me go and help the boss.
He gets worked up and makes a step forward, but she stumbles and falls onto the ground, unable to pick herself up.
I didn't know she was bleeding so profusely. Quick, take her coat off.
She's fucking bleeding to death, bro. You take care to remove the leather coat sticking to her body. Her tiny body is covered with wounds so deep that the bones are almost visible. New wounds are oozing blood, mingled with the old ones that have reopened.
She did get first aid in Salva. She is indeed the sinner that was hidden away by them.
So it wasn't suspect arm.
How long had she been fighting down there by herself? Are Legion people all lunatics?
That didn't seem like her way. Or is this part of her shifting strategies?
Should we put her under control with the shackles?
No, not for now. Let's carry her down. I've got something to ask her.
Where am I?
Girl passed out. You're carrying her on your back, heading towards the depths where the stone altar is.
Where is Boss Zoya?
She's on her way here. You point upwards, the vibrations running throughout the crypt are ongoing, getting even closer. It's a countdown for you, but for Horo, it's hope and comfort. When you're recovered and have taken care of the inheritance, she'll praise you.
All right. Put me down. I can walk. I'm heavy. You are out of breath.
Why does she talk like that? Kills me. You can do this. You're small.
I am not small.
God, you have so much energy for someone bleeding to death. Calm down. The tiny arms around your neck give a sudden tug that almost makes you fall backwards. Luckily, it lasted only a moment. It was more a reflex reaction than a result of her losing her temper. I've been like, her voice is crazy the whole time. Yeah. She's lost a lot of blood. Her body's slightly cold. She's slumped over your back, limply, groaning every now and then. Not unlike a sick child. I can still fight!
Thank you.
Moe.
You are so calculating! Come to relieve me only when she's about to wake up.
She pouts her lips and mutters something under her breath at you. She's been carrying horror all this way! You just relieved her. She is spent. That's hilarious. They're like, oh shit, she's about to wake up. Put her on my back. Put her on my back. That's great. That's awesome. Burdened with that ridiculously heavy axe, Nightmare staggers along the tail of the procession.
She's awake. Question her now?
Yes, Horo's breathing caresses the side of your neck. Weak, slow, and defenseless. There couldn't be a better time to question her. What have you been through all this time?
At the beginning of the year, some gangsters tricked me into the Bureau. I was detained for about 12 days. Then they found out I was a sinner and transferred me to MBCC. I was kept there for half a year.
What were you doing when the riot broke out in the Bureau?
No idea. I didn't know what happened. When the door opened, I ran. I fought my way out. I had to do something really important.
I know what it was. You went to the Salva.
No, not the Salva. I came here the first chance I got. Because the inheritance is here.
Hmm?
Once, while I was in the lockup, I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard someone talking outside. He said, the inheritance in the rust has been moved to an abandoned pit in the southern desert. It continues to produce forces, and they have to deal with the Legion as soon as possible. This was very important. The moment I got out, I came here to find out about the truth. Then when I arrived, I saw. I see a huge stone altar. Some strange rites. Red crystals and weapons. Someone is experimenting on humans. I hide around the corner, trying to figure out what's going on.
The conditions here are appalling. We can't make top quality crystals here. We won't make it. There aren't enough sinners. If we go on like this, the gangs, even with the weapons, won't be able to defeat the Legion.
Then use the inheritance.
Oh my god, it's this fucking guy.
Our customer wishes to get the power to defeat the Legion. And that's what we should deliver. The inheritance exists for the sole purpose of granting wishes.
You're not thinking about...
Take the stalk out and invite everyone over. We're giving them a stronger force. Strong enough to defeat the Legion. They will be over the moon.
That silhouette looks like Goldio from Pocket Mirror.
Who is there?
No
Find
one.
them! And kill them!
Find him and kill him.
This place must not be exposed!
That's a hellish sight. I must tell the commander about all this. About mania weapons, about those men in black, about the inheritance. I don't remember the last time I was so frightened. That thing. That power. When I saw it, the only thought in my mind was to run away. I have to get out of here and inform the commander. Can't let that power fall into the gang's hands. Can't allow it to endanger the Legion. Get up, Horo! You cannot lose! The commander is waiting for me. The Legion hasn't fallen. I have to get out of here. I have to.
Poor thing.
What's this little thing
Hi!
doing here?
Hi, hello, hi, Crash.
Hey, are you still alive?
She sounds so much more dopey in
I'm-
here. In the later chapters.
Not little.
I'm looking for a green-haired gambler, a little kid about your age. She lost her mind and came
Oh
here to seek
shit.
revenge.
Wait,
Have you seen her?
Ruleka? No way.
I am not a little kid. I've grown up.
Girl, calm down.
Ugh, little brats are such a real headache.
Would she say that?
I feel the darkness swallowing me. I feel as if I'm suspended in the air, floating and drifting.
Would Crash, founder and
We're
leader
going
of
to
the
the
homeless,
hospital.
say this?
Hang in there. Don't die on me.
Okay, Crash would say this, but not the last line. Wait, I don't know. Maybe she would. Iron said Horo was hanging by a thread when she was brought to Salva. Who saved her? Perhaps Salva knows the answer. You almost died here.
That power. Can't let the gangs have it. They would use it against the Legion. I have to. I will.
She passed out.
Poor thing.
Well, let me sum this up. Someone was trying to use the inheritance to make mania weapons so that they could be used against the Legion. But Horo accidentally overheard the intel about the inheritance. While that shape-shifting demon was blowing up the Bureau, she escaped and came to the cave, where she verified the intel about the inheritance, but was beaten half-dead in the process. Later, she was rescued by someone, who brought her to Salva for emergency medical care. In the end, this whole episode turned into a rumor. MBCC escapee steals mania-inducing power. This brought Ted and his fellow Mad Dogs to Salva, where they actually caused a mania incident. Which means there isn't a suspect R at all. The whole thing's the upshot of some internal strife among the gangs. We were dragged into this because of an erroneous piece of intel.
Damn.
That Public Security Bureau is a useless piece of trash.
Damn.
It's also the MBCC's responsibility to find out the truth about Mania. Besides, the crisis remains unresolved.
Hekate's right. The mission's not finished yet. You should carry on. That threat from the Legion is hot on your heel, and more mysteries need unveiling. But deep inside, you've held on to is crumbling to dust. That person that you've been chasing so relentlessly by putting yourself in great danger is not her, but Horo.
Oh, Chief, be careful. The enemy is coming.
The contamination is pouring out from the pit below you and starts to encircle you. The crypt is not going to give you any chance to back away. Okay.
I have a foreboding feeling. This gigantic pit seems like a living thing. Should we go on?
Heartbreaking.
Do we really have to find the inheritance?
There is no turning back.
The person on your back stirs at this moment. How did you wake up? Why did I sound like Crash for a second? Oh.
You, on the other hand, look spiritless. Where's that person who faced my axe head-on without a weapon in hand?
She is not a combatant.
Who cares?
You weak as shit.
Once you step on the battlefield, you have to fight your enemy with everything you've got. There is no place in this world for kindness and tolerance towards deserters. Put me down. Give me my axe. I'll take care of it.
Stop talking nonsense. You're still recovering.
It's you who failed to grasp the situation here. The inheritance, it's being activated, just like back then. If we don't contain it soon, we're all gonna die.
You won't be any help here, just stand aside. In a way, severely injured Shorty does have a knack for encouraging people.
Put me down! Put me down! I am a Legion warrior, not a good-for-nothing! There is something fishy about this inheritance. Let me fight!
You sound so sad! As she yells, Horo hits you repeatedly on the back with her limp fists. She has to stop after a short while to catch her breath before she can start again. Apparently, she's too weak to
Don't
stand.
waste your energy. Your only job is
bum-ass
to point us
music.
the right direction. If your wounds
I
get
call
worse,
this bum
you'll
ass
have to
music
stay
because
as
that's
good
what it
for
sounds
nothing
like.
for another month.
And that's always when it plays, when some bum ass shit is going on.
The Legion people all muscle and no brain. A lot of you are just like your boss, a bunch of brainless brutes.
Damn.
Don't you dare badmouth my commander!
Anger rises inside her and she starts strangling you again, strength returning to her hands all of a sudden. Wrong person.
Sorry. I respect my commander, so I can't stand people saying anything bad.
The moment you drop this axe, you're gonna put the shackles on her. She's really doing your head in.
But she's really, really scary.
She's so emotive.
I guess you could fill up the entire syndicate with people cursing her behind her back. Don't you think so?
Ouch, ouch, ouch. You're seeing stars now.
Sorry, I did it again. You little devil. I'll deal with you as soon as I'm back on my feet.
She's just like an emoji. She's just like an emoji.
We've got a brainless fangirl here. Ow!
Ow! I got a wax Hella on the back of the head who finally gives it a rest.
The Legion's enemies are numerous. Don't pay any attention to any of those rumors. You've met my boss. You know what she's like.
Another bang comes from the direction of the central elevator. The whole crypt is shaking violently, with rocks and gravel raining down. It reminds me of that woman and her steely look and
What's
her
the
murderous malice. The murderous malice. Bleh, 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 bleh. Truth be told, I don't know what she's like.
It's good enough that only those in the Legion know my boss is a decent person. Anyway, considering you'll join us sooner or later, I'm gonna give you a taste of what she's like. My boss was not among the first to join the Legion. It was not called the Legion before she joined. And I was not a sinner. We were just a mercenary fleet on the outskirts, away from the urban area, hiding in the desert and surviving on commissions. Because the fleet was afraid of getting involved in battles.
Oh, were they like a White Sands
Whenever we
fleet?
crossed paths with gangsters, when they were plundering and looting,
No, I guess the
we
rust
kept
is
our
part of
mouths
the
shut
city.
and took a detour. When they came for us, all we could do was run away, make compromises, or beg for mercy. I was furious and wanted to take them on. But Earl stopped me at every turn. He said battles required strength, which we didn't have. So I was not happy when he took Boss Zoya on board, saying that we were to reform the fleet and build up our strength to fight back against the gang. That just meant I wasn't good enough. And I didn't deserve
Sweetheart, I
to
bet
be
you
on
were
the
like 12.
battlefield.
Tone it down, calm down. It appears that she was really infuriated.
I was so pissed off. I went out to pick fights with gangsters. I came back to challenge her to a duel, all to prove that I was strong. I had what it took, that I could fight. Defeating her would be proof enough. It went on for a while, and then I got hit in the arm by a bullet. A mania bullet. The contamination was spreading so fast that I would have to have my arm amputated.
Oh wait, shit. Is her other? Oh, I
Before
never
the
noticed her other
amputation,
arm might have
I
been
challenged her to a duel again.
a prosthetic.
I thought that would
Oh,
be
I
my
never
last
noticed.
fight. My boss stopped Earl when he tried to intervene and accepted my challenge. She took it seriously, and she knocked me down without mercy. She encouraged me to fight on. A lot of nonsense is happening in this world, but there's one thing that's certain. As long as you still want to shout and hold your head high, you have the right to fight.
I'm nodding my head.
My battle was not over. She was waiting for me to get back on my feet.
And you did get back on your feet.
Yes, I did. I wasn't beaten by the contamination. I became a sinner. The injury in my arm became my battle mark. And she my beacon.
She didn't get her arm right. What is that gold running across her arm? I understand you, but do you understand her? What is she thinking? What is she fighting for? Her dogged determination to fight till the very end. Is there some explanation for it other than her desire for
I don't
destruction?
know. There are many things that my commander won't tell me about. But that's not important. It's she who showed me that I'm worthy of battlefields. She is my beacon. And for that reason, I'll follow her until the day I die. For her, I would do anything.
Wait 1 second, I need to close my curtains and open my lights. It's getting dark out. Actually, after this chapter, I'll take maybe a 5-minute break and I'll be back. I understand.
Of course you do. Our commander is
expression is so
fabulous and
good.
cool, isn't she?
Fabulous and cool.
Whoever lays eyes on her is bound to succumb to her charms.
Okay, man. He reaches over your shoulder and takes your hand, giving it a few shakes with a flourish. A big smile brightened her face. You've seen the dark side of the Syndicate. For those who've been long trapped in the darkness, a raging fire like Zoya must have proven even more irresistible. But what is being fed to the fire just so that its light can chase that darkness away? What will the fire consume along the way?
I've been having this feeling, and I'm now certain what it is all about. You're exactly the type of person that my boss
Straight about that
most
sentence
appreciates.
earlier. Yeah, I'm saying.
You're weak.
He's a
but you have the
gay
qualities she
teenager.
really admires. Oh, you're
You
the
guess
envy
fuck.
of me. You're so
Guess
weak.
fuck, man.
But come back with me to the Legion when the battle is over. My boss will be delighted to see you.
You're setting me up with your boss. She meant it, but at this very moment, what expression should you put on?
Pity that you won't live to see the day.
Oh my god, it's just one of these fucking guys again.
Who's there?
They all sound the same. Before you have time to turn your heads, a stink grenade explodes behind you. From the wall of contamination, rich dust emerges. Yeah, I should stop
Lackeys
having
of
it.
the Legion.
Several
Thanks for
gangsters.
leading the way.
Oh my god, bro.
You can die now.
Okay, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. I'll be back. I'll be back. I have returned. I have some tea on me now. Yay. Oh, sick. I love this song. Yep. Here I am. Where the hell were we? Here.
That's no use! Here comes my almighty firepower! Mania bullets!
And bro's having way too much fun with this.
Get down!
Horror brings you down onto the ground, but she's hit by a stray bullet on the shoulder and falls over. The wound is being contaminated rapidly, and the dark mark on her right arm starts burning. Again?
Embedded with mania crystals.
Dude.
The bullet was full of contamination.
Dude, the poetic tragedy of this. This is the same fucking shoulder that she was shot at when she awakened as a sinner. That's fucked up. That's evil. That's kind of evil. Okay. Okay.
Not only that, she is overreacting. The contamination is not supposed to spread so fast. Could it be?
Could it be? The entire ground is vibrating like an enormous throbbing heart. At the center of the vibration is none other than a stone altar, from whose patterns a sludge is oozing.
It's that sensation again. That sickening sensation.
The inheritance.
The inheritance is being activated, and the mania in its vicinity is being reinforced. So is the contamination inflicted by those weapons.
Exactly! That's how it is!
That's how it is.
That's how things stand! The inheritance is on our side! We are stronger now!
You're asking for trouble. You're being corrupted by mania.
No, no, no!
No.
I'm very clear-headed.
Yeah, you
Very
sound
much
like it.
indeed.
You sound like it. Yeah.
They said, as long as we can get rid of you, as long as we are able to protect the inheritance, they will make us more weapons, more crystals, to help us win this battle!
They are using you. They know only too well we are great for power. They gave you a couple of uses of mania weapons to trick you into coming here and facing the Legion's firepower. You are nothing more than pawns in this battle against the Legion. No, not just this battle. This game of violence where gangs fight and winners rule has been a lie through and through since the very beginning. Power seized through brute force will only be taken away by greater brute force. No gang can be the master of Syndicate forever. They can't even be the master of their own fates. A true master has its presence in the script, and in the hand of every gang who desires to become the supreme ruler. The true master is the mania weapon that everyone is after. Shut up. It is the mystery arms dealer behind the scene. He uses the phantom prize of supremacy to stir up fights and is ever increasing the price tag on violence. He is putting one overlord after another in the throne, while he himself is the one true master behind the scene. Oh, hi! Hi. Hi, me. I'm in chapter 4. Shabibi.
Mania weapon is the real master. It decides who gets
You're
to
playing
be the
Slay
king
as Fire.
of the Syndicate.
Play.
Oh,
It's a whole hour. No! It's okay.
Whoever holds the inheritance has control over everything.
I'm like a little over halfway through this chapter. It's fine. Archive will stay up on Twitch and then
That's
YouTube.
why we took the job.
No.
The inheritance is right here, within our reach. It has never been so close to us. Now is the best time.
Bless the read-along archives.
Feel it? Are you insane?
If even one person reads past Nowhere main story because of my
You were
archives,
turned into
I'll be happy.
monsters.
What if I turn into a sinner? Power of this magnitude? Who can say no to that? Just
Oh,
wondering. What did that shorty with the Legion come here for? Surely she's come here to get her hand on the inheritance before anyone else does.
no, bro.
I understand. I really do.
He's gonna be like, don't call me
We were
shorty.
born in the Syndicate, and we will die in it. Power is everything.
Power is everything. Is Horror doing
This
good?
holds
No.
For
He's
all
bleeding
of
to
us.
death. Oh, whoops. But clicked outside of blue stacks. Blue stacks come back.
The energy of the crystals is pouring out.
Rip Horror, she always dying.
This is the inheritance.
It's okay,
I'll
she gets
kill
cool
you.
later.
Kill the Legion. I can pull this off now.
I love Timescape Horror. She's so grown up. She looks so much more
I
grown
don't
up.
have to take orders from others anymore. Syndicate is mine to take.
The mania crystals in her hands start burning and the patterns on the altar are spreading out. The overpowering sound of a thumping heart is shaking the crypt.
I am feeling miserable. So many voices in my head. Shut up, shut up!
A abort the mission and get out of here. The inheritance is penetrating the shackles, and Chief will...
You gotta catch up on Thorny Road. I know! I will, I promise. An excruciating pain assails your head, and you feel as if countless avaricious hands were tearing at your soul. In a trance, you see the gangsters rush towards the stone altar like squirmy dark shapes. The stone altar, there's someone who, if you don't stop it.
Let me stop it.
Who? Oh, or a chill washes over you. Close by your side, a dark blur leaps up and hurls herself into a center of chaos. The sweeping axe gives out a black energy beam in the shape of a blade and tears apart several enemies in the front.
Horo? You...
Yeah, I need to read Thorny Road. I need to see what Margaret has going on. I feel like I'm gonna like Margaret, like in the same way I like Shalom.
You scumbags.
Isn't she like a little worse in a way?
You think you could hold the Legion back?
Yeah, she's like Shalom in that way. Exciting.
I won't let you have your way. Not as long as I'm still around. I will not let her fall!
Oh, we only have 4 chapters and it's still solar. Four parts.
Get lost!
Corpses are piling up at her feet. Her fury is blood-curdling.
Horo is getting more powerful. Is it because the inheritance is resonating with her? I don't understand. Isn't that thing on the site of the gangs?
The inheritance is resonating with mania. It activates the powers of all maniacs. And in return, maniacs running wild allows the inheritance to continue its activation.
The crazy scene before you brings on a sudden realization. You now understand why the mystery arms dealer, a calculating creature with hired gangsters who have a tendency to betray. It's impossible that he failed to anticipate the betrayal of these people. Rather, this is exactly what he intended. He taps into the gangs' greed. This isn't a bid for the inheritance. This is a trap. He gathered all these people here and used their craziness to feed the inheritance. He's trying to cultivate something. Okay, man.
Mad dog from the Legion.
Damn.
Go to hell!
They raise their contamination-infused spears and lunge at Horo, paying little regard to the bodies of their fellows in the front.
Got you!
Oh, she's turning into a joker. Not even bothering to wipe away the blood, she grasps a spear that has pierced her torso in one hand and wields her axe with the other. The blow blasts the 2 front rows of the enemies away to one side. Aura!
My Legion. As long as I'm still standing.
I don't know why the word axe is really tripping me up today. At the center of the storm, the warrior's body takes on a demon-like quality. Contamination is flowing out of her short stature, and only the battle mark on her arm is burning, glowing a blood red. You are no stranger to that feeling. A huge shadow enshrouds Horo, malicious, insubstantial hands reaching out from the stone altar to touch her, tempt her, and corrupt her.
If not suppressed by the shackles, the contamination will overpower a sinner. Horo is turning into a corruptor.
Gray-haired maiden. No, can't let this happen again. You're not going to stand aside and watch this time. Did I sign up for the content creator thing? No, I didn't. It would be funny if I did. If I do, I would like to like actually stream on a consistent basis. Or she's consumed by that thing.
She can't hold out much longer. Go! Take her down!
It would be if the deadline's over now anyway. Yeah, fair. They're probably gonna open it up again sometime in the future. Wings the axe insanely, facing the fierce attack head on and not backing away a bit.
Stop it! Stop it!
Probably next anniversary, yeah. I'll probably be there in a year. Lol. A massive block flies over from behind, clearing anything that stands in its way, and squarely collides with a stone altar before going limp and sliding down. The human body uses a cannonball. In that instant, the air curdles up. Fear has produced the enemies in a moment of clarity. They are staring at the space behind you, their bodies shuddering. In dead silence, footsteps draw near, move past you, and continue ahead. You recognize the figure. You're familiar with the awe-inspiring aura. Mania forms twisted shapes on her body. It's her. Again!
It's
Aura!
Quick!
Oh my
Don't
god,
let her
it's
come
that
over
fucking
here.
track again! Only the best for Zoya. As if being jolted out of her reverie, they now turn their guns on her and mount a hysterical last-ditch attack. He does have aura.
Ella,
He has so much aura.
Protect the chief.
She's on her last legs. Take him down.
Bring it on! Together! I'm sending you down to hell!
Oh my god, she's so badass. The bloodshed has ended, but that manic bloodlust has not yet dissipated. He steps forward on shattered blades, covered in blood, and looking for her next spray, like death. The fire burns up in her eyes once again. The fire is getting out of control, burning away and going wild with the heartbeat in the stone altar. Shattered blade! Yeah, that's what I said. The inheritance hasn't fallen dormant with the annihilation of those minions. It is still throbbing, then somewhere deep in your head a chaotic voice rings.
So powerful. I want it. I want her. Come to me.
I'm doing what I show Sweet Give right now. This is the bewitchment of the inheritance of mania. Zoya, stay away from the stone altar. Don't get yourself contaminated. The response she gives you is one of irrepressible anger. At this moment, a pair of grubby hands take hold of Zoya.
Finally! You're here!
Oh my god, it's a thumbnail.
You are injured. It's nothing. I'll sleep it off. Did I make it? Right on time. I knew you would come. Kept inside the stone altar is the source of those crystals. The source of those weapons. They want to take it and use it against you.
Horo,
He makes
the
me so
Legion will
sad.
not lose.
Yeah, I really like the CG.
I know, Commander. You're the strongest. You always lead the charge. In every battle, you're always the head of the group. Legion is what it is today because of you. That's why I want to be part of your strength. Commander, I've guarded the inheritance. Take it with you.
The murmurs of the chaotic voice come back. This time you detect the source. It's located at the other end of the shackles. Zoya has heard the bewitchment mingled in Horo's words.
Come on. This is the power that you desire. You need its power. Once you possess it, there will be no need to fear the tricks of those bastards, and there will be no more unnecessary loss of life. Mania crystals. Powerful weapons. Unstoppable power. They are all yours. No one can get in our way. Syndicate will change. We're finally able to change it. You were born to wreak destruction. You need stronger power that can destroy everything. Don't you want to destroy everything? Come on.
Jeez.
It's here. Here.
The inheritance is controlling Horo to tempt Zoya.
Chief.
Keep out. Keep out.
You instinctively make to stop it, but the filthy sludge ensnares your ankles. It transforms into the shape of Horo and slowly immobilizes all of you.
You've got yourself all these cuts and bruises. It isn't just about its power, is it? Horo, what do you fear?
Hell.
Oh!
Horo coughs up blood after receiving a heavy blow. Zoya's eyes are red with anger. The murmurs of the bewitchment die down, but the red light coming out of the stone altar is growing brighter.
I fear. The moment I saw it, I knew. We can't win. The voice has found its way to my brain. I can't resist all the things it tells me. I saw with
Did
my
that say
own
blighter?
eyes
I don't
how
know,
it
did
turned
it?
sinners into monsters.
Yeah, it did say blighter!
It only took a second, and the sinners were gone.
Is that a real word?
This is the
No,
source.
blight is a real word, but like, is it blighter?
The source of mania. The source of us.
Blighter does not mean this. That's not a synonym to brighter. Yeah, no, that's a typo. Lol. Apparently it is a real word though. But this is definitely a typo.
If it falls into the hands of our enemies, if they use it against you, if even you will.
Horo.
I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to. If you are defeated,
Oh,
the
Horo.
Legion will be no more. I don't want to see you fall. This time around,
Oh,
I'm
this
prepared
fucking
to do
sucks to
anything to prevent
read. Fuck.
I don't want to see any of you fall down in front of me anymore.
At the other end of the shackles, Zoya hesitates. There's a cry from within Horo herself, not something she has been manipulated or bewitched to saying. It's the darkest trap set by the inheritance. Horo's cry has made Zoya waver. Fuck. At this moment, a crack runs down the altar. Like a hungry, gaping mouth, countless tentacles crawl out of the crack towards Zoya.
The inheritance wants to devour them?
Yeah, bro.
No, that thing. It is craving Zoya.
Taken with you!
The red light bounces off Zoya and takes on a hue that is dazzling and frightening. A stubborn consciousness inside you is shouting. I almost made a joke. I almost made a joke. That thing it is craving for Zoya. Ooh, aura. Aura, 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 aura. Tens of red beams protrude from Zoya's body, nailing her to the spot. Finally, she looks up at you.
You're using the shackles on me?
Yes, you must resist it. I'll not allow you to succumb to it. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Chief, don't use the shackles. You've got the bomb inside you.
No, it's fine. Earl doesn't have to know.
If you ever use the forbidden force on my commander, threaten her or confine her, or if she were to
It's okay, he doesn't know. He doesn't have to know. He doesn't have to know.
I'll detonate the bomb immediately.
He doesn't have to know. will detonate eventually, whether I use the shackles or not. You deploy the shackles, but the bomb doesn't detonate, which means it isn't a self-triggered bomb. That man has to be present to make a judgment and then detonate the bomb himself. And there's room for maneuver.
You idiot! How could you put your life on the line like that? You idiot!
I can stop her!
Stop me? You?
Zoya plants herself in front of the altar. The shackles are doing nothing to her stance. The red beams are dancing behind her, and only her face is concealed in the shadows. The shackles are restraining her, but they are shaking. They're lashed by a tremendous force, and you can feel a chaotic voice corrupting the other end of the shackles. So much aura.
She is weak! She can't restrain you!
Break free from
So
her.
badass!
Destroy her. Devour every bit of her. I'll help you destroy your enemy. I'll make all your wishes a reality.
You ran away from me like a wimp for dear life, and now you crawl back here to stand in my way? Why? The authorities want the inheritance too? You also want this impure power?
There's something that I can't forgive, so I have to fight it. Mania has brought down countless misfortunes. No one should be allowed to use it to make bigger disasters. I dread it. If destroying your enemies at all costs is your idea of determination, then laugh at my cowardice to your heart's content. I won't let you attain the inheritance. I will not let anyone use it.
Is that so? I haven't seen people of your ilk for ages. I almost forgot that even in a shitty organization like the authorities, there might be someone who doesn't fit in. Tell me your name, Chief of the MBCC.
I'm... no.
Even that stupid look of bluntness looks familiar.
The authorities.
Hey! Careful! Behind you!
Zoya says fuck the police. I'm average McLeese, man. I'm not fucking safe. Good job, Ella. Nice job, Ella. A massive black sludge suddenly ensnares her. Before you can say anything, your ankles fall victim to the sticky substance. Yucky. The sticky cold tentacles crawl up quickly and strangle you fiercely. Its contamination's in the shape of Horo.
Let go. Let go of Commander. The inheritance belongs to our Commander. Commander!
Fuck the police!
He is our Commander!
Literally!
Let go of her, or I'll kill you!
You hold on to the shackles tightly, even though the rampant auras tear your consciousness into pieces.
Your will is stronger than I thought, but you should fight differently.
Uh-huh.
I'll give you a chance to use the shackles on me. Fight through me, but watch your mouth. You don't want to lose to that thing, right?
The black sludge is tightening its hold on you, but strangely, the tighter it gets, the less willing you are to loosen your hands. Yeah. I don't.
Very good. Then all that's left to say.
Oh my god, the CG is gonna come up.
Don't
Yes!
lose.
Woo! Woohoo! Woohoo! The words come out in unison like an incantation. Bright light erupts from the shackles surrounding Zoya, and it instantaneously severs the shadows that have been crawling toward her. Hype moments an aura. Holy shit, her aura, I'm safe. She dashes, and the next moment she's standing before you. She clutches the unconscious Horo with one hand, and with the other, she deals a punch that smashes that filthy human-shaped thing clinging to you.
Get your hand off the chief.
No, he sounded so pathetic.
Get your hand off the chief.
I love Hikate. The creatures clinging to your sinners are also smashed. Zoya grabs 4 of you and leaps out of the contamination mire. You saved me?
You're shaking so badly. Are you cold?
Yeah. Zoya's holding you upright with one hand. The last time you were so close, she almost took your life, but this time?
Look at you. Scared to death. Still, you gave up the chance to escape and came back to the battlefield to stop me. That's not cowardice. It's courage. Something that's too precious to be found. You really are something else. Don't die in a place like this.
Commander! Come back! Come back!
You're not, Horo. How's Horo doing? The real Horo is lying in the crook of her arm, struggling in pain.
Horo is fighting. I should go and help her.
The foul incarnation dissolves. Horo is finally free of the shadows, collapsing into Zoya's embrace. You alright?
She'll get through this. She got through injuries 100 times more painful. She'll come back from this. She knows we're waiting for her. Now, it's time to deal with it.
She rises to her feet and looks towards the opened altar. Ooh, that was so awesome. So freaking awesome. That was so freaking awesome.
It's gone. It's been taken.
Slowly, the tentacle-shaped shadows retreat to the cracked stone altar.
Does this mean it's under control?
No. The inheritance is more active than ever. And watch out.
From where you came appear new pursuers, eyes glowing red and charging like mad in the direction of the stone altar.
We didn't see this many people when we came down. Where have they been hiding?
They were the ones who blocked my way. I beat the shit out of them. And here they are again.
Beat the shit out of them. That's fucking awesome.
They must have been bewitched by something.
Oh yeah?
Get down!
Yeah, bro. She makes you crouch down with one hand, and with the other she punches the ground, causing a blast of air that nullifies all incoming grenades. Damn.
It is calling me. It is calling me. The inheritance is mine. It has chosen me.
You! It's me! Me! I've heard it. It wants me!
The crowd thunders past, howling and pasting themselves onto the stone wall like filthy sludge. They are brawling and stepping on each other.
The crystals and the weapons are going manic. And all these gangsters have been contaminated with mania. Why did the inheritance bewitch them into coming here?
Thousands of black spikes thrust out of the patterns and pierce through the crowd. In the next seconds, bodies and spikes, along with all the craziness and fear, are sucked into the coffin. Silence descends outside of the coffin, punctuated only by the slow throbbing of a colossal heart.
Almost there. Almost there. More. I want more.
Bro's hungry. Oh, fire. The coffin opens. At that instant, you hear a twisted voice and see a withered hand. The hand rises out of the coffin and points skywards like trembling and threatening death. The familiar scene makes you feel nauseous.
Wake up!
Yay, ring, cool ring. A ring would be hella cool. Oh my god. Her exclamation brings you back to your senses. The hand has disappeared and is placed crawling out from under the coffin, a distorted behemoth of a monster.
More. Give me more.
Roar. Roar.
That's what they were after.
Stop it. Don't let it get out. If it gets out and goes to the more chaotic syndicate, it'll definitely...
Oh, are you scared? You went toe-to-toe with me, and now you're scared of that thing?
She laughs, pats you on the back.
Don't worry, I've made plenty of preparations, just so I can eradicate it. And you are part of the preparations.
Fire. She walks straight for the chaotic Leviathan. The contorted being starts disintegrating. Oh, yeah, right. Boss battle skipped. Even so, the contamination storm hasn't quite let up.
Die! Die! Ring.
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 Boss battle skip.
Almost there.
Give her back! Give her back to me!
It crumples up into a ball and jumps up, throwing countless tattered tentacles at Zoya. Its burning red core revealed. Yo.
This is what it really
core
is.
exposed.
For this thing, Nate.
No, but Zoya can't do core damage. Hekate hit it.
That's where the story ends. The shackles!
With effort, you ramp up the shackles to stop the contamination from corrupting Zoya. She strides ahead from the palm of her clenched right fist. Flows blinding white light. Then she throws her fist at the gaping mouth of a monster. Red at the core. At the red core. Does her reforge break core? I don't think so. I don't think her reforge made her much better.
Go back to hell!
It's such a shame that she's like a shitty unit in game. She's so badass. The white light rips up the giant monster, and the blast of air clears away the filth in the crypt, which is now bright as daylight. No, she's good in. Oh, she's good in the Overlimits team. I see. Hype moments on aura. Yes, this is. Zoya is very hype moments in aura.
What is that?
What is that? The white beams spin rapidly and collapse in on themselves, locking up the struggling red lights. In the end, all that's left is a white crystal cube hovering above Zoya's open-up palm. On the facets of the cube are patterns that appear on and off. That's the true form of the inheritance?
No, that's a seal.
Seal?
She has used some sort of unknown technique to seal the inheritance along with its mania.
The area around the altar is in ruins. The contamination is dissipated, and the mania crystals all over the place start splintering. This twisted, throbbing sound can no longer be heard. You can hear the approaching footsteps from above now. Oh my god, ban. We banning. We banning this guy. Ban this guy. Kill this guy. Twitch, kill this guy. Thank you. He walks toward you all, picks up the unconscious Hora, and walks in Zoya's direction. Meanwhile, his face is deadly solemn.
It's all right, Earl. The battle is over.
Tucks away the white cube and looks up at you.
Let's go back.
Bleh. Oh my god. We're almost done. You are in the temporary base outside the crypt. Using the Legion's communications equipment, you finally get in touch with the MBCC. It has been 47 hours since you lost contact with them. The MBCC is taken aback by your encounter and analysis. An investigation on the inheritance soon follows, and Nightingale makes rescuing you a priority. Apparently, Xiaofeng is better than Zoya in the Overlimit team, honestly. Oh, she's still kinda useless. Okay, so she's useful if you don't have Xiaofeng and you're trying to play the Overlimit team. Lol. Lamau. Lol. Three hours prior to the agreed meetup time, you step out of the communications vehicle to find Zoya waiting for you outside.
You done?
You're not up to something, are you?
You're the one who's up to no good. Did you just call the Bureau to have us arrested?
No.
Give it a rest, Chief. We don't have to be at each other's throats anymore.
Then ask that man to be nicer to me.
Earl?
Fixed a bomb on me.
I'm not surprised.
He's like, haha, yeah, he does that. Zoya, Earl's being mean to me. You find it funny?
You can rest easy. The bomb goes dead automatically after 24 hours. He probably forgot to explain it to you.
I think he didn't explain that to me on purpose.
Horo's still unconscious. Her overprotected brother's mind is on nothing else at the moment.
Lol. Horo? Earl is her brother? They're siblings?
Don't act so surprised in front of Horo. She would read it as, one sibling is so tall while the other is so short, and gets super mad.
Looks like there's a lot of juicy stuff going on in the Legion. But now there's something more important to ask. How's Horo doing?
The contamination has been all cleared out, but she's still in a coma.
Oh, yeah.
Corruption by the inheritance is more serious than I thought.
Same thing to say, Chief. Juicy things happening in the Legion.
When she wakes up, we can find out how she got the intel about the inheritance. We have to ferret those guys out.
At least the misunderstanding's been cleared up. The MBCC now knows Horo has nothing to do with Suspect R, and this maniac crisis also has nothing to do with the Sinners. We'll find out the force behind the inheritance. They are the culprit for the disaster in the Syndicate.
Someone said something along those lines to me before.
Oh?
He said Syndicate's misfortunes are the work of a clique of conspirators and evil elements. He's also looking for them.
Mm-mm.
If we can get rid of them, Syndicate will be free of chaos and return to its former glory.
Who is he?
He was like you, a naive misfit in the authorities. But he's dead now.
Damn.
I can't be bothered to picture how this place might change. Ever since I could remember, Syndicate has always been chaotic and violent. Abandon the city and become a degenerate. Or become a degenerate, then be abandoned by the city. It makes no difference. It was once glorious. But that glory is long gone. Even if you find out the one behind the inheritance, the gangs will still fight to the bitter end for the inheritance husk. This isn't a case of one worm turning the water murky, but a case of the murky water breeding millions of worms.
Jeez. So, destroying everything is a solution? You look into her eyes a bit deeper, trying your best to ascertain whether cold fire of anger is still burning silently inside of her.
You've put the shackles on me, so you can stop me anytime you want, unless I kill you, right?
She's setting your mind at ease, but at the same time, she has changed the subject. At this moment, the noises of a helicopter interrupt you. It's the MBCC. They have arrived over 1 hour sooner than scheduled.
Chief, you're all right. Thank goodness.
Hi, Nightingale.
Nice to meet you, Commander of the Legion, Sinner Zoya.
Adjutant, is it? Are these all the people you've brought?
The MBCC holds no grudge
Nightingale was
against them, and
tweaking
for
out.
the time being, we are not
Oh.
after the sinners on the loose, or you. This is our way of expressing our gratitude, by order of the Chief.
Oh?
The MBCC has sorted out the Chief's oral account, and has submitted a preliminary operation report, in which we've clarified the source of the mania crisis, and emphasized the contribution of the Syndicate sinners in the operation. Just now, we received a request from the Public Security Bureau in the Dis City. They read the report, and are asking to get in touch with you to discuss the business of the inheritance and the amendment of West District Order Management Regulations.
Oh, that's pretty big.
They came to you and made this request?
Yes. The authorities wish to reopen the negotiation and discuss the future of the Syndicate with local representatives.
I have like a zipper on my mouth.
And that's also what the Chief wants.
Zoya falls silent and turns to look to you.
The reception must have been good. You got this big load of information across in such a short time?
I wish there were other ways around this.
That sounds superior for a mere chief. There's no way I'm gonna give you the inheritance. But I want to see how sincere you are. You can go get the Public Security Bureau to send someone suitable to talk to me.
Suitable. I don't know.
I agree to participate in the negotiation for the sake of the new MBCC chief. Are you satisfied with this arrangement, Chief? Go. Go back to your subordinates. We'll meet again.
Thank you, Zoya.
Come out. The coast is clear.
No.
That was quite amicable. Doesn't your commander hate the guts of people from the authorities? I'm surprised she didn't tear apart the helicopter.
She has her reasons.
All right then. Please pay the information fees. Second in command of the Legion. Just swipe your card here. It took me quite some time to spy on them. This is a reasonable price.
A reasonable price.
Of course it is. Speaking of which, you lost the White Cube and a staff member. That woman asked for such a low price. Quite out of character.
Bye.
This is how the woman put it.
The woman.
This is how the cube is supposed to be used instead of sitting in my place collecting dust. And one fewer mouth to feed, which means less expenditure for the company.
What the fuck?
My good fella, please give us a good review, and we hope to be of your service again.
What the fuck? She just let KK go like that. Oh, one less mouth to feed, bro. Bro.
I've checked the chief out. She is trustworthy. KK is safer with her.
I guess.
One more thing. Please tell your boss, the inheritance is salvaged, and it's just the beginning. Boss Bai sends her regards.
Wow. The main story makes Bai sound
Still can't
like
let the suspect our thing
a
go.
competent woman.
Rest assured, no
Which
one
is
can
really
fault
funny.
you on that. You got a lot to show for your first mission out. You achieved a lot for the Sinners, the FAC, and the Dis City.
You can return to the Bureau first. I'm staying in the Syndicate until the negotiation's over. And when you get back, help me track down the source of that erroneous intel. I really want to know. Suspect R, I haven't heard that name in years, yeah.
How's Horo doing?
She's not getting worse. Or better.
Yeah.
Is that so? Sorry, Earl. I was late.
No need to apologize. She chose the path, and so did the Legion. We've decided to follow you. I hope you're not getting cold feet.
Never.
Great. We're ready to tie up the loose ends of the cave business.
Zoya nods, walks over to the edge of the cliff, ignites the lighter, and tosses it. Cool. Watch it all burn down.
Destroy every Mania weapon in Crystal, and take all the documents. Put them in a safe place, along with Horo. This is the clue she risked her life for. Keep that in mind, and get to the bottom of all this. It's the to the N, yeah. I need to make some preparations for the negotiation. All right, let's go. Let's go and change Syndicate.
Wow, really nice painting here. Wow. Wait, was this the last one we read, or is this the last one we read? You're in been spending 24 hours last contact with them. They always he's taken aback by your encounter analysis. No, I did read this. Okay. Yay! Chapter end video. He's so cool. I know, right? Wow. Zoya and Taro when? Never! Apparently. Fuck. West District Peace Talks. How long is this chapter? It's 2 parts longer than chapter 4. Probably gonna get a requested version of her before the and Taro. I mean, actually, shit, that would make sense. Since they did, like, introduce a couple new game features when Negresta Hella was introduced. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, that does make sense. That makes a lot of sense. We'll read... yeah, it's almost 2 hours. Yeah, I know. I'll read the first part of chapter 5 and then I'll stop the stream. 7:27 a.m. August 20, NF112, Square Boulevard, West District, this city.
Reporting from Kalen Square, center of the West District, and once a landmark of the Dis City's industrial belt.
I like how his face is broken off.
Since NF33, it has borne witness to the establishment, development, and prosperity of the West District, and to its subsequent bankruptcy, decline, and decadence. In half an hour, it is going to witness yet another all-important negotiation.
Oh yeah, for anyone who's a dumb bitch like me, it took me like 3 years before I realized NF stands for, like, no, I understood NF stood for Nightfall, but for some reason I didn't connect the dots, so that's like the year dating system in Path to Nowhere. Like, this is year 33 since Nightfall. I guess it would be like AD in real life. Yeah, I don't know why it took me so damn long to realize this the year. I'd be like, NF114? What is that? So embarrassing.
After a lapse of 13 years, the City Council is now ready to reopen talks in the West District. The Legion, the Syndicate's rising gang, is to participate in the negotiation as the representative of the West District.
Yeah, they talking pre-Nightfall, post-Nightfall. Yeah.
Is the former Kalen Exhibition Hall at the center
before
of the
Christ and
square.
after Christ. I guess in our year dating system.
It will be a closed-door negotiation. Burns, director of the City Council and former chief of the Public Security Bureau, will attend in person. The whole community is waiting with bated breath for the outcome of the negotiation.
This game does love using biblical imagery, so...
What will the West District, or rather, the Syndicate gangsters, demand? Will the West District order management regulations be undermined? What impact will this have on our city?
Look at all those scared damsels from the east side. A gas mask would have gone well with that ensemble.
Lol.
Way too many cops, big vehicles, and all the helicopters in the air. Like a huge swarm of flies.
This kind of reminds me of...
Does any of this look like they're here for a peaceful negotiation?
This reminds me of the court case in episode 2 of The Devil. Like, the crowd being composed mostly of, like, cops that don't seem like they're there for a fair conclusion. They just want to see the person on the opposite end torn down to shreds.
If I were the Legion, I'd be in no mood for negotiation when I saw the nasty faces of these sons of guns. I'd be like, negotiation my ass! See you on the battlefield!
Negotiation my ass! Watchtowers have been set up all around the square. The officials in charge are now out here to welcome the arrivals as a gesture of good faith. Only fully armed sheriffs on guard everywhere. Court scene was wild, it was. A negotiation, in essence, is a game of comparative power. When the Legion delegation arrives, the atmosphere will only get more tense. A conflict is still a possibility. The authorities and Syndicate, regular Joes and sinners, there's such a huge gap between the former and the latter, and you're not expecting the gap to close up overnight. But the atmosphere is indeed highly unsettling.
Hey, are you the ushers sent out by the authorities?
Yo, boss!
Yo, boss. He's here. Your shackles have reacted to her approaching, and you have come to the periphery where she is to enter the square, waiting for her arrival. A cohort of alert armed sheriffs follow her closely. To your surprise, Zoya is here alone as the representative of Legion. Probably not a good idea. Where is Earl and everyone?
I came here alone. I don't want to spook the faint-hearted here. Or
Very noble
think
of you.
They can beat me?
Well, the sheriffs raise their guns nervously. Zoya pays them no attention. She looks at you with a light-hearted smile on her face.
Relax. I know what these guys are made of. I'm used to it. I'm curious. If there was a fight, which side would you take?
Your side.
Don't stir things up.
Awesome. If I had to take a side, it would be my own side. Incredible. You are so cringe. Give me a break, would you? We're here to figure out Syndicate's future together, and now both parties to the negotiation have some secret design. You're not making this easy for me.
If it were so easy to secure the future, the statue of our great man wouldn't have worried itself bald.
I think it's a little bit more than bald. He's referring to the statue of Kalon in the center of the square, a few hundred meters away. It is a memorial to the great scientist who brought the hypercube to humanity and a tribute to the grand city that he built. Maybe this city shouldn't suck, I don't know. Dr. Kalon himself was probably not bald, but half of his statue's face has been blasted off, making the face indiscernible. And the statue has long been an object of ridicule. The statue's body is covered with layer upon layer of graffiti, like ugly transdermal patches. It's a reflection on Syndicate, damaged beyond the point of self-salvation. New
This is
eternal
where the
nightmare next
gangs
to
fight for supremacy. The rule is, the final winner gets to paint their gang logo on the topmost point of the statue as a symbol of supremacy. This is how Syndicate operates.
Wow.
Power
How do they climb
seized
up there?
through brute force will only be taken away by greater brute force. From fists to bullets, then to mania weapons. What do you think will run this place next?
It's a tough question.
It'll be me.
Oh my gosh, she's so full of herself. Heart mode. She pats you on the back, smiling.
There will be no more gang fights. The old order ends today, and I'm the one putting an end to it.
Is this one of the pep talks from the Legion commander? You can't help but laugh a little. I can't take this. I can't do this. You're about to take her to the conference when several towering sheriffs appear out of nowhere and stand in front of you. You, singular.
Chief, a task has come up for you.
It's the sprite of the guy with the big boobs.
We've learned through our investigation that a large number of people carrying mania weapons are approaching
Oh,
the
no.
square. We do not yet know their intent, but we're sure they're not coming in good faith. The FAC has been entrusted by the City Council with security of the square and preventing any mania event. Please track down these potential attackers, Chief. You've proved your competence and good judgment in your last task. No one else is capable of this task but you.
This is an excuse to get me out of the way.
What?
Okay,
the
girl.
negotiation is happening because of Chief, and now you guys are kicking us out right before it starts? Do we look like idiots to you? Come, I'll shove this task
Whoa.
up
That. What was that? Sorry, someone just hit my door really hard. I don't know what happened. You put your hand on Helen's lifting arm, cutting her off. The sheriffs have raised their guns. There's no intent to talk it out. They even seem happy to have been given a chance for confrontation. Zoya's watching from the sidelines, a half smile playing around her lips. She doesn't look surprised at how the situation is going. Commander, you okay with this arrangement?
I'm totally okay with it. Or rather, let's just say, I'm happy to see that you are not on their side.
Seems like you are the only one who has not entered the negotiation mode. You sigh and turn to the sheriff, answering with the same cold, stiff voice. Alright, I accept this reasonable task. But tell whoever assigned this to me, and I'll find out the background of those rats and expose all the masterminds behind them. This is a negotiation that I brokered. Whoever tries to sabotage them, I will make them pay.
We look forward to hearing good news from you then. But please, don't overstretch yourself.
You sound so fucking full of yourself.
Your MBCC is not the highest level of ministry after all.
Oh my god, die. Die.
Well, cut the crap now. The negotiation is about to start, right? Get a move on then.
Leaves you and strides towards the sheriff.
Loosen up. Instead of wasting your time here, why don't you go around the area and seek out your old friends in Syndicate for a drink? Your adventure in Syndicate is coming to an end. They must have a lot to say to you.
What about you? Do you have something to say to me?
Whatever I want to say has already been said. Just don't forget the conversation we had the other night. Today, I'm gonna put an end to this mess.
Zoya, why did you skip through that? No. Okay, I guess I'll end here. Thank you all for watching. I'm excited to get back. This time I actually scheduled the next stream. The next stream will be, let me take out my... Where is it? The next stream will be in exactly 2 weeks at the same time. So April 17th. Oh, wait, I'll see if I have more than like 2 viewers. If I have more than 2 viewers, I'll raid into someone's stream. 1 second. Going to the waiting screen. Wait, guys. Have a good rest of day. Thank you, Jester. Thank you, Trash. Thanks for coming, everyone. Have a good rest of day. 17th is a Friday. Oh, not 17th then. 18th. Whoops. I guess I typed it wrong. Oh, not 17th then. 18th. Whoops. I guess I typed it wrong. Yeah, okay. Alright. Who will we raid then? Are any of my mutuals streaming? Oh, news streaming. I love new. News awesome. Okay. Let's go into news channel. New, I don't know. Actually, no, it's new. I think it's new. Underscore CH. I watch their streams every now and then. They read a lot of visual novels. They're streaming Final Fantasy right now. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, hopefully, if nothing goes wrong. Bye-bye.
Chapter 11 and I'm massively confused because suddenly I can go wherever the hell I want. Am I going the right? Yes. Hi. How are you? Okay, maybe this time. Maybe this time. Yeah. Oh god. Oh, that's a lot of them. Oh, that's a lot.